so great that games are getting recognised for their writing now.
Yeah, I think some of the best stories are told in games, but you know what games are also good for? Clicking hundreds of monsters to death in the new Diablo 3 expansion, Reaper of Souls.
No one can stop death.
Barjo, I've missed playing Diablo 3, and I forgot how beautiful and polished this game is. All the combat is just so reactive. Abilities are exciting, monsters satisfyingly ragdoll to their doom, and when you're playing in co-op with 3 friends, it's just chaos.
Ah, Diablo 3. It's one of those games that I just could not bring myself to uninstall, but I also haven't jumped back into it since we reviewed it way back in 2012. However, Reaper of Souls isn't just another chapter. It brings some massive changes to Diablo 3 that might just pull you back in.
Well, let's talk about the story.
For a time it seemed we would know peace.
Diablo is defeated, and while any fan of the series knows that probably won't be for long, there is a brief moment of peace in the first cutscene.
You have done well, Horadrim. Your service here is finished, and you should all run.
That is, until Malthael decides it's the perfect opportunity to take over.
Yes, and by reaping souls and causing as much death as possible, Malthael grows stronger and stronger.
Why is Malthael so intent on the city's destruction? Because he feeds on death.
It's up to you to find out his plan, fight back the hordes, and save the land. And hordes is what you'll find in bucket loads. If I had one word to describe this expansion, it would be hectics.
Oh, it's hectics to the max.
Yeah, it's fully hectics.
Hordes of enemies will hurl themselves at you without warning. They come out of the walls, they burrow out of the ground, and they will chew you up and spit you out. It's hard going being a hero.
Yeah, there's also a new class to play with, the Crusader, which has evolved a bit from the Paladin. The Crusader wears heavy armor and has some healing-focused abilities, and lots of stuns. And like all the other classes, new abilities and runes are thrown at you with nearly every level, so you're always playing with the ability sets. You can use ranged abilities for your base attacks, but it's just much more fun getting in there and meleeing with this character, I think. But do you know what my favorite ability was, Hex? The one that reigns far above the rest?
Yeah, funny enough, I do.
Prepare yourself for the stampede.
Hey Hex, what you doing there? Would you like some horse?
Enough with the horse! Get the horse out of the way, I'm trying to run. Why do you always find one ability in these games that you just become obsessed with just to troll me?
Who knows?
Hex, come look at this, come look at this. It's just in the corner here.
Stop it with the horse! Such a noble, heavenly voice for the Crusader too, isn't it?
Yeah, although I think the male sounds a bit like bad Star Wars Ewan McGregor.
He's clever, delaying us while his power grows with each moment.
I enjoyed all the stuns with this class and the fact that you can hold so many different types of weapons, but what I like most of all is that you can put in a rune that lets you hold a two-handed weapon in one hand.
What?
I know, I've never played an RPG that's done that before.
They're breaking all the rules, Barjo. We haven't personally had time to max out all the abilities for the rest of the classes, but our favorite so far has got to be this one. That's right, the Witch Doctor's version of a Sharknado is a cyclone of piranhas, a piranado.
Gross. This expansion feels much more intense to me than Diablo 3 did.
Yeah. The levels themselves feel more alive and reactive as they crumble around you, and you'll be forced to deal with a good variety of enemy types and attacks. Plus, there's a whole bunch of timed and ambush events within the dungeons throughout the whole game, not just the expansion. really liked these new events because they just made it so worth it to explore each map fully.
Yeah, absolutely. And now you can really put the pressure on too, because you can set your own custom difficulty. A few weeks before the expansion came out, Blizzard answered the call of fans and changed this system so you no longer have to play through on lower difficulties to unlock the harder ones. I remember our biggest complaint with Diablo 3 was that first run through, which you were forced to do on normal, and it was just so easy that it made the game a little bit less fun than it should have been.
Yeah, a lot of the old school Diablo players in our team were quite divided on that issue, I think. Now you can adjust the difficulty on the fly or start on any setting you like, except for the Torment tiers, which unlocks when you get a character to level 60.
And those tiers of Torment difficulty, Hex, the rewards for playing those are some pretty epic legendary gear that just won't drop anywhere else, and they can be so brutal. For those who only did play through once, suddenly this game will feel like it always should have been, a serious challenge, forcing you to use the abilities the way they were intended, making you switch out abilities and approach fights differently, and rewarding you properly for your hard work. Another big change is that if you hit the new level cap of 70, you can continue to earn Paragon Levels, and hitting these lets you increase stats across each category by spending points. These points are shared across all the heroes tied to your account, even level 1s.
Yeah, and spending these points really allows you to tailor your character in areas where they may be deficient based on gear, which is great. Another change is that enemies now scale with your level. In theory, you could jump into any chapter at nearly any level and you'd be able to play no problem.
Yes, but unlike the old Elder Scrolls games, which used a similar system, this feels really finely tuned and balanced to me. And the game is just pure fun, isn't it?
It's so fun, and that's partly due to that Blizzard polish. You know, nothing feels half done.
And I've never appreciated the sound design until now, I think, either. Oh, the screams and howls of enemies.
And every win still shines brilliantly with glittery, rewardy, sparkly loot joy. Also, now the gear that drops will be more appropriate to you with the redesign of the loot system.
Yes, another bold restructure of the game. The theory as I know it is less loot will drop overall, but what does drop will be more suited to your class with better stats. Along with cheaper gem crafting, it's all changed to make sure you can just have a better time organising and playing with items and gear. And the legendaries, Hex, oh, they really are legendary.
They are.
They all seem to have a really interesting and unique stat assigned to them too, so it's more than just damage. Some gear leaves a trail of fire, and some randomly spawns lava. The most important thing is when a legendary does drop, it's always exciting and it always matters.
They can even drop from little bone piles on the side of the road. I mean, you want to check those bone piles.
Check everything.
You can also now enchant gear. It's very expensive on materials and gold, but for example, if you find an amazing sword that doesn't have a gem slot and you want to max it out, you can. So it's perfect for that.
You can also transmogrify your gear to make it look the way you want to, and I'm getting a little obsessed about that, Hex. One reason behind this redesign and balance of the loot system is because they've removed the auction house. It's gone. And I think that's generally considered amongst the Diablo community to be a good move.
We recently spoke to Paul Warziker, lead character artist on the game, who spoke about their decisions behind this.
We're all excited about being able to let go of the auction house. While it was a great experiment, ultimately it took you away from killing monsters as being the reward itself. We want people to get in there, and the best way to get loot should be to slay monsters. It shouldn't be to hang out in the auction house, hitting the refresh button. Removing that and getting the opportunity now to put the focus back on killing monsters was a big reason for it.
Overall, Reaper of Souls didn't feel huge in length to me, and I think, Hex, that might be an issue for some who still only want to play this through once on normal, but that's not really how you play this game anymore. This is a whole reshape, not just an expansion, and now the endgame is called Adventure Mode.
Locations marked by an exclamation point have bounties for you to undertake.
This unlocks when you finish the campaign, and it lets you go back into the map for bounties in the pursuit of leveling and gearing up to tackle the campaign's harder difficulties.
Adventure Mode also lets you unlock and open up Nephilim Rifts. These are essentially randomized dungeons to plunder, but they're also different. You'll never encounter two the same, and the super randomized design means that things can get out of hand really quickly. These rifts just add so much replayability, don't they?
Yeah, they just increase the longevity of the game that much more and give you more reason to keep playing.
Strength is restored.
Overall, Barjo, with all of its thoughtful changes, this is a pretty perfect expansion. It's like they've taken the best stuff from Diablo 2 and inserted it back into Diablo 3.
Yeah, and it's exactly what the fans wanted. I think this also lays the groundwork for the future of the series, which is a good thing. What are you going to give it, Hex?
I'm gonna give it 9 out of 10.
I'm going to give it 9.5 out of 10.
There we go. Oh, gross. His lungs are still breathing.